Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving deep into what you might call the engine room of strategy, the SWOT analysis.
Right.
It's, one of those foundational concepts in business, but I think most people just see it as a simple checklist, right?
It's a common view. Yeah.
So we're here to show you how to really master it, how to turn those four letters, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, into a genuine competitive edge.
That's a perfect setup. And our mission for you listening in isn't just to define SWOT. It's really to get under the hood, see how it works fundamentally, and most importantly, how you can execute it with the kind of strategic depth needed to make smarter, data-driven decisions.
Okay.
The basic definition is simple enough. It's a study, right?
Yeah.
Identifying S, W, O, and T. But the real power, and this is key, comes from demanding a realistic, fact-based, data-driven look at where an organization actually stands competitively.
I like that emphasis on realistic
Yeah.
because we've all been in those strategy sessions that kind of drift into wishful thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
And SWOT is supposed to be that, well, brutal mirror forcing some clarity.
Exactly.
What's really fascinating looking at our source material is just how far this thing has spread. It started in corporate strategy, sure, but
Right.
now it seems like it has almost limitless applications.
It really does. Governments use it, nonprofits, investors trying to gauge market viability.
Even individuals,
Yeah.
like for career planning.
Yeah, individuals charting a career change, and definitely every entrepreneur trying to figure things out. It's universally applicable because it helps structure the chaos, forces you to look both inward and outward.
Okay, so let's jump right into that structure then, the four pillars. When we talk SWOT, the really critical split, the one that shapes your whole strategic response, is that division between internal and external factors.
That's it.
That tells you what you can actually manage versus what you just have to react to.
That distinction, internal versus external, is absolutely everything. The first half, S&W, that's your internal assessment. These are things you, as an organization, have some degree of control over.
Right.
So on the positive side, you've got strengths, S. These are your internal advantages. What does the organization just nail?
Like a strong brand.
Yeah, a strong, recognizable brand, maybe a super loyal customer base, proprietary tech. The source material actually gives a great specific example.
Oh, yeah.
Hedge fund with a proprietary trading strategy
Mm-hmm.
that consistently beats the market. Now, that is a core internal strength you need to leverage.
Got it. And the flip side of that internal look has to be weaknesses W.
Mm-hmm.
These are the internal things actively stopping you from performing at your best. Still controllable, but challenging.
Exactly. Things like high debt levels, maybe high employee turnover,
Yeah.
a shaky supply chain, or just not having enough capital. These are the internal drags you have to prioritize fixing.
Okay, so that's the inside view. Then we look outside.
Right. Now we move outside the organization to the external factors, opportunities and threats. And these are much tougher to influence directly. You're basically analyzing the whole environment you're operating in.
So opportunities. These are favorable external things you could potentially grab onto.
Favorable external factors, yeah. If you seize them, they can give you a competitive advantage. Think about a car manufacturer.
Okay.
If some big country suddenly cuts tariffs on car imports, boom, that creates a clear opportunity. It lets that manufacturer push into a huge new market without that heavy tax burden.
Makes sense. And then there are the external things you just have to brace for. The risks. That's threats, T.
Precisely. Threats. This could be anything from rapidly increasing competition.
Like we see in so many industries now.
Definitely. Or political instability, maybe rising costs for essential materials. I like the agricultural example in the source, too.
Which one was that?
A long drought.
Mm.
For a wheat-producing company, that's a direct environmental threat. It could potentially wipe out their crop yield. It really forces you to look beyond your own books and assess those macro risks.
Okay, so we have the four parts. Now, when people visualize this, it's usually that four-box grid, the SWOT table.
The classic quadrant, yeah.
But we shouldn't get too hung up on just where the letters go, right? It's what that layout tells you instantly.
Exactly. The visual split, internal on top, external on the bottom, positive left, negative right. It gives you that quick overview. But more importantly,
It tells you where to maybe focus resources. Like, are we fixing an internal weakness we control, or are we building defenses against an external threat we can only react to?
that's the strategic implication, precisely. The table itself is just a tool for gathering the data. The real value comes from the analysis after you've filled it in. By aligning that internal data, your strengths and weaknesses, with the external data opportunities and threats, the whole technique starts to guide your strategic roadmap. It helps point you toward strategies that are more likely to work and away from those likely to fail.
And what's interesting you mentioned is that it's not just for the company itself.
No, not at all. Independent analysts, investors, even your competitors can sort of reverse engineer a SWOT analysis on you to figure out why you're strong or weak in certain areas.
That's insightful. Okay, so I think the place where people often stumble isn't just listing the factors, it's the execution, actually doing the analysis effectively.
Absolutely. That's where the real work is.
So let's get practical. Let's walk through the steps. And we should probably stress again that the value just shoots up when the analysis is aimed at a really specific goal.
Yeah.
It's like, say, deciding whether or not to go ahead with a big new product rollout.
That objective is the absolute anchor. It keeps the whole process focused. Okay, so let's walk through the 5 key steps for doing this well.
All right, step 1.
Step 1, determine your objective. Simple but crucial. Set that clear, focused goal. If it is the new product rollout, then everything you gather, every idea should be judged against whether it helps you make that decision.
Okay, objective set. Step 2.
Step 2, gather resources. And this is where that bias risk really starts to creep in. It's not just about collecting reports and data. It's about gathering diverse perspectives, meaning you need people who are connected to the outside world. Sales, customer service, logistics folks, talking with your internal experts, like manufacturing or R&D.
Ah, so you don't end up in an echo chamber.
Exactly. If you don't get those different viewpoints, your analysis might just confirm what you already think. And critically, you also have to really assess the data itself. How reliable is it? What are its limitations?
Makes sense. Step 3.
Step 3, compile ideas. This is the brainstorming part, but again, keep it targeted towards your objective. The goal here is quantity initially. Get as many relevant items down as possible.
Like a big whiteboarding session, sticky notes everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Throw ideas out there. Ask pointed questions. What's our biggest competitive advantage? That's a strength question. Or what new tech could we use? That might be an opportunity. Just generate the list first.
Okay, lots of ideas generated. Which brings us to step 4, the refinement. This sounds like where a good SWOT really earns its keep.
It absolutely is. Step 4, refine findings and prioritize. You've got your big list from brainstorming. Now you have to clean them up and, critically, focus only on the most impactful factors.
And our sources flag this as a major trap, right? Forgetting to prioritize.
Biggest trap. Neglecting to prioritize or assign weight. Look, not all strengths are created equal, and not every threat is an existential crisis.
But how do you measure that impact objectively? I mean, that feels like where it could get subjective again. You might have 30 items listed, and the really crucial ones get lost in the noise.
That's the challenge. You need to assign weight based on some agreed-upon criteria. The most common way is to look at 2 dimensions for each item. Impact, if this happens, how big is the effect? And likelihood, how probable is it that this will actually happen?
Okay, impact and likelihood.
Then you rank them. Maybe just a simple high, medium, low scale. That helps you figure out which risks demand immediate action and which opportunities are worth a serious investment. The stage often involves substantial debate, and you might need input from senior management to help finalize those rankings.
That systematic weighing feels essential, and that leads directly into the final step.
Correct. That prioritized list is your input for step 5. Develop the strategy. Now you convert that refined, weighted list into an actual plan that addresses your original objective. This is where you move from just listing things to figuring out what to do. You start looking for strategic pairings.
Okay, let's quickly define those pairings, because this feels like the core of advanced SWOT use.
Absolutely. There are basically 4 key strategic pairings you look for. 1, SO strategies. Strength meet opportunities. These are maximization plays. How do we use our internal strengths to really go after a major external opportunity?
Got it. Leverage strengths.
2, WO strategies. Weaknesses meet opportunities. These are conversion plays. Can we use an external opportunity to help us fix or overcome an internal weakness?
Interesting. Turning a weakness around.
3, ST strategies. Strengths meet threats. These are defensive. How can we deploy our existing strengths to minimize or push back against a major external threat?
Using strength to protect yourself.
And 4, WD strategies. Weaknesses meet threats. These are usually the toughest. mitigation plays. How do we minimize an internal weakness specifically to avoid getting hammered by an external threat?
Okay, that structure makes the planning really actionable. So going back to our product rollout example, instead of just vaguely saying, let's revisit this in 6 months,
Right.
a synthesized plan might look at specific pairings, maybe a WT pairing. If the weakness is limited manufacturing capacity and the threat is rising material costs.
Then the WT strategy might be something like redesigning the product slightly to use less of that expensive material, while also maybe outsourcing a less critical component to free up internal capacity. It becomes a targeted response.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It uses the analysis input to really dictate the strategic output. Exactly. Now, let's try to make this even more concrete. Let's use that detailed Tesla example TSLA that was in the sources. We can sort of see how their strategic moves seem to align with these pairings.
Yeah, the Tesla example is great for this. Looking at Tesla, their strengths are pretty clear, right? They were a pioneer. The brand commands a premium.
Huge brand recognition.
Huge. Plus, their advanced battery tech gives them great range and performance. And don't forget the massive first-mover advantage with their supercharger network. That's huge.
Definitely a strength. But internally, they also grapple with some clear weaknesses.
Oh, yeah. Production capacity is still a bottleneck. They often miss their own targets. There are those recurring reports about quality control issues.
Right, the fit and finish sometimes.
And their pricing, while coming down on some models, still keeps them out of reach for a large part of the market.
Okay, strengths and weaknesses. Externally.
Externally, the opportunities are massive. Global demand for EVs is just exploding.
It really is.
They have huge potential in related areas like grid-scale energy storage and solar power, which are high margin. Their autonomous driving tech, as it matures, is another massive potential growth driver. And of course, tapping into big emerging markets is still key.
All right. And finally, the clouds on the horizon. Threats.
Yeah, the immediate threats. Competition is heating up incredibly fast. All the traditional automakers are flooding the market now with really competitive EVs.
You see new ones announced almost weekly.
Exactly. Economic downturns are also a threat, especially for luxury goods like their higher-priced models, and they face potentially huge supply chain risks.
Especially for battery materials.
Critical materials, yeah. Rare earth metals. Securing enough, given their production ambitions, could be a major struggle.
So if we connect this back to the strategic pairings.
Right, the goal isn't just listing these, it's seeing the strategy. Tesla's main focus, it seems, is a massive SO strategy, using that supercharger network, strength, and their battery tech, strength, to aggressively capture that growing global EV demand opportunity and expand into energy storage opportunity. That's pure maximization.
Makes sense. Play to your strengths where the market is growing.
But conversely, they have a really tough WT situation brewing. They have to fix their production capacity issues and quality control weaknesses before that intensifying competition threat or major supply chain disruptions threat really start to undermine them.
So the strategy there is mitigation, defense.
Yeah, mitigation and defense.
Right.
That's why you see these huge, expensive projects focused on streamlining manufacturing, like the gigafactories. They're attacking the weakness head-on to try and preempt the threat.
Wow, okay, that example really brings it home. And it connects perfectly to avoiding those common pitfalls you mentioned.
It does. Because the number one error people make is failing to be objective and honest. If the leadership insists on puffing up the strength and sweeping weaknesses under the rug.
The whole analysis is built on a faulty foundation.
Exactly. Its strategic value becomes zero. It's just an optimistic fantasy.
And we talked about needing diverse people back in step 2, but does that always happen? The second mistake is analyzing in isolation.
Yeah. If you don't get that sometimes uncomfortable input from, say, suppliers who see your supply chain issues firsthand, or from customers who can tell you exactly where your product falls short, you miss critical ground truth data.
Right. You need those outside views.
Then the third error ties right back to step 4, that crucial prioritization step.
Yeah.
Neglecting to prioritize or weigh the factors.
Treating everything as equally important.
Right. If you treat a minor PR hiccup with the same urgency as a potential collapse of your main supply line, you're going to misallocate resources badly. Distinguishing major from minor is maybe the most critical skill here.
And finally, it's not a one-and-done exercise.
Absolutely not. The business world changes constantly. So the fourth mistake is treating it as a one-time exercise. The second a major competitor launches a game-changing product or a new trade tariff gets slapped on, your old SWOT analysis might be completely out of date. It needs regular updates to stay relevant.
Good points. And we also need to remember its limits, right?
I do. It's
Yeah.
powerful. But SWOT can sometimes oversimplify really complex, interconnected situations. And it's always going to be susceptible to subjectivity and bias, which is why that rigorous prioritization in step 4 is so vital.
It tells you what, but not necessarily how.
Exactly. Tells you what your strategic position looks like, identifies key issues, but it's just one tool in the toolbox. It doesn't automatically provide specific instructions on how to execute the solutions. That takes further strategic planning, action plans, things like that.
That's a really excellent distillation of the strategic reality there. Okay, so just to quickly recap the key benefits, SWOT makes complex problems feel more manageable by forcing that data gathering. It absolutely forces you to consider the external environment, pushes you outside your own walls. It's super flexible. You can apply it to almost any question. An acquisition, expanding geographically, even structuring a team.
Hmm.
And importantly, it doesn't always have to be this hugely expensive, drawn-out process to get initial value.
That's true. You can get a baseline fairly quickly. So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
I think the true lasting value of SWOT isn't really in making the list or drawing the 4 boxes. It's in using those refined, prioritized findings to actually develop and execute strategic actions.
It's the starting line, not the finish line.
Exactly. It's the starting line for intelligent, proactive planning. It helps you move from just listing facts to actually building a robust action plan.
Okay, and to leave everyone with a final thought to chew on, especially thinking about that critical step of weighing and prioritizing.
If you were to apply the SWOT framework to your own career path, maybe you're deciding whether to pursue a new certification or change industries, how would you formally assign weight, that impact versus likelihood, to your own major internal weaknesses and the external threats you face? How would you make sure the really big risks don't get buried by all the smaller, less critical anxieties? That's your next strategic challenge.